Hello, everybody. I hope that given the circumstances, everybody is staying safe and you are all doing okay and doing some self care. This podcast that we will be sharing with you all is a workshop that we were supposed to have at San Jose State, hosted by the Cesar Chavez Community Action Center, as well as the Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center. But because of the circumstances, unfortunately, we did have to cancel it. But Alma and I knew how important this conversation was to have, so we definitely wanted to bring something to you all. So we decided to do a recorded podcast. Hi, everybody. My name is Jasmine Gomez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the In Solidarity Program Assistant at the Cesar Chavez Community Action Center. At the center, which is located on the first floor of the Student Union, right across from the Veterans Center, we provide a variety of social justice-based workshops and professional development type workshops as well. We have volunteering with our K through 12, which is Sembradores and Strive for College, and we also have volunteering with our community garden. As an In Solidarity Program Assistant at the Cesar Chavez Center, it's my job to bring to the students of SJSU social justice-based workshops that focus around students' needs, whether that's building more community or providing more spaces for folks within the LGBTQ community or undocumented folks, or, for example, this podcast itself is going to be focusing on women empowerment. So just any type of workshop like that, that's what the In Solidarity Program Assistant does. So without further ado, Alma is going to go ahead and introduce herself, and then we're going to get the podcast started. And thank you so much for all of you who have been a part of this journey with us and who were so excited for this workshop, because trust me, we were so excited too. But we're glad to be able to bring it to you in a different way. So enjoy.
Hi everyone, my name is Alma and I'm a second year Justice Studies major with a double minor in Chicano, Chicana, Chicanx Studies and Political Science, and I am one of your student success leaders at the Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center, also known as the Centro. So I just wanted to give some information on what the Centro is and what we do. So the Centro is located on the first floor of the Student Union right across from Jamba Juice. And the Centro is a space where you can come in and work on your assignments, meet new people, connect with staff and faculty, and just build a sense of community. We offer a variety of different events and workshops that can help you get more engaged or involved on campus, and we can help you get connected with different resources or services you may need. So don't hesitate in coming in. We are there to help you.
So let the audience know there will be swearing if anybody feels like there needs to be swearing, because everybody's allowed to express themselves in any way that they want to. Also, for trigger warnings, we are going to be talking about some pretty vulnerable and deep stuff, and there will also be a video that is going to be shown about where the author talks about femicide and just violence against women in general. So just wanted to let y'all know that. And now we can start with our introductions. I'm so excited. Okay.
My name is Yesenia Guzman, pronouns she, her, hers. I am a second year, currently future third year business marketing major, and I also work with Almita at the Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center. And yeah.
Hey y'all, I'm Daisy Garcia Chaides. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a Chicanx Studies major. Well, you want to say Chicanx, but it's technically Chicano. Studies major at San Jose State. I'm a junior, and I'm a transfer. So it's my second semester, and I'm happy to be here.
Hi everybody, I'm Esperanza. I am a biology major, fourth year well. And a Chicano and Chicano studies major as well.
What are your
My pronouns are,
pronouns? Oh yeah, there you
I was
go.
getting there. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Nice, nice. Anyways, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad y'all are here. Y'all are all amazing, and glad y'all get to be a part of this. So let's see. Alma and I wanted to give some background about why we named this program what we named it. So Mujer Divina. So we decided on the name Mujer Divina because for me, at least when I was looking at that name, it was kind of like a drawback to religion in a way. So it's like God is usually seen, or like anything divine is kind of usually seen as like a man, or like there's a male power. So I really resonated with the words Mujer Divina, and it was something that I had in my head for like a while, and I was like doodling it in my like notebooks in class and like all that stuff. So then once Alma and I teamed up to do this podcast, or like to do this workshop in general, I was like, I think I have a name for it. And so it was Mujer Divina, because I feel like women are always looked down upon, but women are freaking amazing, and we do amazing work. We're always leaders in organizations and like all kinds of different stuff. So women deserve to have that divine power, and every woman deserves to know their divine power. So that was at least like how I feel where that name comes from. Alma, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. I think when Jasmine told me the name, like Mujer Divina, I was like happy about it, and then kind of like took back because like the name is in Spanish, and you don't usually see like flyers about workshops in Spanish within institutions, and then just the use of Spanish within institutions it's usually penalized and looked down upon, like compared to the English language. And we're not only bringing, because we also had it in English, but the main title was Mujer Divina in Spanish. And it's not only bringing empowerment to all women, but women within the Latinx community, within institutions, because Latinx women are always looked down upon. They're always seen as people that aren't going to make it, people that are probably going to drop out of high school because they're pregnant. But no, we're here. Within these institutions that are constantly going against us, but we made it.
Okay, so with that, we're gonna move on to our first question. So anybody could answer it at any time, just like y'all can just think about it for a little if you feel like it. But the first question that we're gonna go into is, how do you define womanhood?
So originally, when I heard this question, I referred back to what I used to think, right? So the old me would have thought, oh, womanhood is having children. Womanhood is taking care of your family and making sure that they live a life that they want to live, right? Existing in their eyes, in relevance to others. But now I'm like, no, like womanhood is going against everything that I used to think that womanhood was. So I feel like in a way, womanhood is prioritizing yourself as a woman and going against those gender roles or against those ideas that were put on you, and like those actions, like expectations that your family held on you. And I say family because we're gonna talk about later, but machismo is prevalent in a lot of Latinx families, and that's where it all starts. I feel, for me personally,
I really resonated with what Daisy started off with about when she first read the question. womanhood brought her back to the initial thought or her initial beliefs of womanhood, what she kind of grew up believing or taught that it was. And that brought me back to kind of the same feeling where I used to. Womanhood makes me think about what I used to believe womanhood was growing up versus now what I truly believe it is, that what my own unique understanding, which I would say is the total opposite of what I grew up with, within the growing up within the Latinx community and culture. Womanhood used to mean for me, after you turn 15, you are meant to start a family. You get kind of pushed into this like new responsibility phase where you're now supposed to learn how to cook and start thinking about building a family, taking care of kids. And I think that has like a whole historical context behind it, where our like futures as mujeres is kind of set for us, being in charge of family. And now we're not responsible for ourselves anymore. No, we're responsible for creating family, for having kids and catering to the male counterpart. And I think now womanhood for me, what it means to be a mujer is kind of unlearning that and discovering my unique belief of mujer, what I believe, what I want in my future, in my present and my future, and kind of creating that unique sense of, divine, discovering that divine within me, where I feel safe, where I feel like I am fulfilling my own purpose as a mujer, which is totally different from what I grew up with. So I think that is for what I define how for me is womanhood.
Nice.
Yes.
So
Go off on
going back to what Yessi said about quinceañeras, and it reminded me of a video I saw on TikTok of a guy explaining why he wouldn't give his daughter, when she grew up, a quinceañera, because he talked about how in Mexico or like in Latinx countries, the woman would usually get married at age 15, 16, or maybe 17.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, the whole quinceañera thing is like the whole transition de niña a mujer. It's like basically you're putting your daughter out there for old guys or just guys in general to be like, oh, she's ready to get married, she's ready to have kids, she's ready to start a whole home and everything. And when I saw it, I was like, oh damn, like I like when I wanted a quinceañera, like I didn't think about it like my transition to a mujer or anything. Like I just wanted the party.
Yep.
To that extent. But now that I realize it, I'm just like, damn, it's true. Because like some of my cousins back in Mexico, they're not even 20 yet, and they're like already trying to get married and everything. I'm like, no, you have to like get away from those like old ideologies and old costumbres and break away and like make a future for yourself. And then like maybe later in a few years, once you have like your career set, your life set, maybe like settle down and get married and have kids. But you're 15, 16, like you still don't know what you're doing, what you want. And like, I didn't know what I wanted in life when I was like that age. Like, how do you want to get married already? Like, no, just break away from that.
Yes, Almita.
Go on.
Oh, y'all so knowledgeable, knowledgeable.
I still don't know what I want in life. It changes.
We're still trying to find that. Yes. See, this is womanhood. This is solidarity. It's esperando a
It is solid.
your hermanas mujeres.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna add on to like what you were talking about with the quinceañeras. So my dad, he's getting married in like a couple of years, and he was like joking with his fiance not too long ago, because I think the conversation was like how she's gonna be a Gomez now, and she's like gonna take on his last name or whatever. And my dad had said, he was like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna own her now, you know, I bought her for like a goat and a cow. Like he was just joking, but it was because of the like that whole ideology, how like when you get married you take on like the man's last name, and like that all started with like you owning that woman and they're like your property. And like I know for the longest time, like since I was 17, that's when I decided, I was like, I'm not changing my last name if I get married. Like maybe I might hyphenate it or something, but I was like, I'm not changing my last name because this name is mine and it's like what I was born with, and it's the name that like I resonate with, and it's like my own type of ownership in a way. So yeah, I wanted to like bring that up about how like it's so crazy how a lot of these things started with like the ownership of women, and it's always like the man's last name and like all of this stuff. But I also wanted to bring up the fact with womanhood is that there's such a spectrum of gender that a lot of people don't even see like non-binary folks or like transgender folks as like belonging within that spectrum, but there are folks who do identify as women who aren't seen by society as women, or who are more femme presenting, who also are looked down upon. So like I really wanted to touch upon that as well, to just remind people who are watching this as well, that their womanhood is a spectrum, and there's like so many different aspects, and we all have our own definitions. But yeah, so now that Esperanza's back.
It took a while to be able to log in again.
I know.
Do I go ahead and answer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So last night I was reviewing the questions. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna come in prepared with notes, and that's what I'm like. I'm not taking notes. Like, so when I thought of womanhood, I thought of my own personal experience and how it is that I became the woman I am today. And at first, I'm just like, I don't know, like it was just like a thoughtless journey that occurred. And I thought about it a little more, and it was more I've been like learning a lot of behaviors and ideas that you have in order to become this like this woman that you don't even know exists. Because for the longest time, like my value was based on how others saw me, and how I can implement the ideas that I had been taught into who I was. Like, be girly, but not too girly. Like, be a pick-me, but don't be so annoying that no one likes you. So it was kind of like creating a balance, but then realizing that balance of things and ideas that I had created was not the version that I wanted to be. It was not making me happy. So it's a whole journey of learning and unlearning certain ideas. And these ideas can come from anywhere. It can come from the influence of others. It can come from culture, religion, and it's just learning all of this, learning what you really believe in and what you don't believe in, and taking a stand. So I guess it's another way to say it is like picking and choosing your battles of what you want to stand for.
Yeah.
Yes. Picking and choosing a battle that you want to stand for. Very powerful.
Quote of the day.
Yes.
Can I add on to something that Jasmine and Alma said earlier?
Yeah.
Those aviones passing by. Okay. So Alma, you brought up a really good point about the quinceañeras, right? And I was like, ew, how disgusting that like our fathers pay for all of that. like our father, I'm sorry, I'm speaking about other people, but in my situation, right, my father did pay for it because I had a quinceañera. And I'm just like, ew, like the fact that that's what it means and they're so willing to drop money. I know a lot of families that drop hella more money than my family did, right? And I'm just like, why? Like, and your parents know. Our parents aren't dumb. They know like the meaning of it, and the fact that they are reinforcing it by giving us the party. I feel it's just like, and of course I can't put the blame on my parents, right? I know it's because I wanted one. I didn't really take the meaning seriously. I just wanted a party. I wanted a dress. I wanted to feel like a princess, and fall into that, of what you're supposed to be as a girl,
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good. And then también, Jasmine, when you said that you're not gonna, if you ever get married, if you choose to get married, you're not gonna take anyone's last name. You're gonna embrace your own. However, I was thinking, I feel conflicted because if we're resisting by not taking another man's name or another person's name, whoever we choose to partner up with, technically our name comes from a man already.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, my last name is Garcia Chaides. Garcia is my dad's name, and Chaides is my mom's last name. And then I thought, well, fuck it, I'll erase it all, and I'll just keep Chaides, my mom's last name. But where did my mom's last name come from? From her dad. So I'm just like, damn, this patriarchy never stops. Like, how can we resist in a small action if it's not going to be enough to break an entire cycle? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
If I were to respond to that question, I think yes. Okay, the patriarchy is instilled in the culture. It goes years back, and that goes back to what when you mentioned, Daisy, about las quinceañeras. I think now I think the meaning of quinceañeras have changed a lot from its like original historical meaning, because like how Alma also mentioned, um and how I would also mention that for me, like my quinceañera was kind of just the party, was just like the fun, it was kind of like expected, like, oh, once you turn 15, like, oh, the question becomes like, ¿quieres 15? Or like, ¿cómo vas a querer tus 15? It's kind of like now for I would say, well, for me personally, I don't know, it varies, but kind of like just the diversión, the fun of it, the party, the like, oh, okay. And also, a little bit of, okay, guys, you're a mujer, you're grown, this and that. Well, no, you're 15, you're freaking young. And so it could vary, maybe, the meaning behind it or kind of like the purpose behind it has changed, amongst families. But also with the last name, I'd say the little actions do count, do kind of make a difference for future generations. I'd say now, keeping, I guess, if you yourself find a value in the last name that was given to you at birth, whether it obviously comes from your father, but when you start kind of your own journey and your own future, I'd say if you find value within that last name, then keeping it is kind of breaking the cycle, is contributing to the change, into this new meaning of, into this new like meaning of mujerhood, like what you want for you, or who you identify as, creating your own. You know what I'm saying? So I think those little steps, if you find value within that, I'd say keeping your last name, resisting in that way, small change, but it's purposeful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I hear you, and yes, the patriarchy is living, and so this is why we gotta break it down little by little.
It's hard out here, like even for people who want PhDs, like what's their last name gonna be? Hey, represent if you want a PhD. Damn, like all these, like your name, that PhD, those letters become a part of your name, right?
Yeah.
And so I can't imagine like a hardworking ass mujer getting her PhD, earning those letters, and then to just fucking give them up to some other person's last name because they're married. Does that make sense? Because of a legal document, and that person did not earn those letters. You did. But because you're marrying them, those letters become theirs if you let them. How crazy is that? Like, everything, all your accomplishments will be somebody else's.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Well,
You fight.
this is a thought that I always had, and the thought that I had in my previous relationship, because we were, you know, it was a long one.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you're always hopeful when you're young. So thinking about the last name, I'm just like, well, it doesn't hurt to add his, right? I like to add theirs. And then afterwards, I thought about it, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm like, I'm just going to keep my own name on there. And it's not to bash any other woman who does choose to add their partner's last name, because it is a personal choice. There is probably more than what that happens like behind closed doors and behind the curtains. Like maybe that partner is the only like family that they have. So it's like, for me, it's a personal choice. And I don't like to bash other women for it. And growing up, like, you know, like when my parents had me, I'm always like, well, why do I only have one last name? Like everybody has like two last names. They're all really long. I'm like, I want one, even though my first name is already long enough. But then my parents were like, you know, like there was like a mix up with the paperwork. Like we didn't really know how to like fill it out at first, especially since they didn't offer like the Spanish or English version of it. So that's how you ended up with one last name. And I was like, oh, okay. But then over time, you know, like that last name becomes my own. It it does signify, but it's something that, like, you know, it has never changed, has stayed consistent, has changed. Like the person attached to the name has changed, but it's a name that has become my own, and it's like a strong one too, that I like to believe. It's like strong, and when people like hear it, like I hope that they kind of tremble a little bit, but it just becomes like your own.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry if I came off like I'm bashing other women who choose to get the last name. I just, when we open these doors, I can't control what I say. Does that make sense? Because I'm like, fuck, like that means this and this and this. But you're right, Esperanza, it doesn't mean that for a lot of other women, you know? And so thank you for bringing that to my attention and reminding me that, you know, it is the empowerment in womanhood is allowing women to have their own choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, not to go down like the, I guess, like rabbit holes when so much of it we don't question. Like we don't question why our father's last name goes first and why our mother's goes second. We don't question why, when there's financial trouble, we look towards a man figure or manly figure instead of a woman. Even though, at least in my own experience, it's always my mother who is dealing with the finances. And now myself, that I'm dealing with the finances of like the home. So it's like a lot of things that are so traditional that we just don't question. So when we do have an opportunity to question them, it's hard not to like unravel a whole ball of yarn. So you shouldn't have to apologize for going that route.
Yeah, I'd like to mention too, with that like conversation that y'all just had, I think it's important to mention that, you know, you don't feel like how Esperanza said, like, yeah, don't be like, be unapologetic. I think this is a safe space, and I know that those who us talking and those who will listen to this or hope that are aware that, you know, we're speaking from our own, you know, unique there's a like saying, but I forgot what it is, but it's like we're speaking from our own experience, and I think everyone is aware that we know we're not taking this personally, and it's not in a negative, or it's not meant to be like in any way negative against anyone or any ideals or whatever. You know, this is kind of just our own, and so just kind of being aware that we're not taking anything personal, we're not trying to be personal in any way. So yeah. That was special though. I think that was an important combo.
Yeah.
And that is women empowerment.
Wow. Segue.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing, everybody. That was like a really good conversation. Honestly, probably keep going on just that one topic for like forever. But we have more for y'all.
Yes. I think that was honestly the best segue ever. Like that interaction was just, that was like empowerment, you know, having that kind of respect. Oh, don't be unapologetic. Like, I get you. Don't be unapologetic. Don't be apologetic. Like, you're good.
Thank you, y'all. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry.
Stop saying sorry.
All right. Unapologetic action.
Yes.
Well, I feel like we kind of touched base on the second question, which is what is women empowerment? And then we could also tie in the questions of what are some different ways we can empower women, and what are some examples of women empowerment that you have seen. And I feel like for myself, I think one of the biggest women empowerment examples I've seen recently is when the video of the Chilean woman doing the chant against, what is it called? When they
Against femicide.
yeah, when they're saying the violador eres tú. I feel like that was just amazing, because that whole chant and movement didn't just stay in Chile. It transcended borders. Like, it went all the way to Europe. People in Europe were doing the video too, the chant. And just to see how women were uniting, like, and transcending borders is just amazing, because like you see like a lot of times women bashing other women, and then just to see in this moment unity within all types of women is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I would say so too, is like, how do you empower women is having these conversations, like the conversation that we're having. They're much needed, and I don't think people realize sometimes like how much these conversations are needed. But just this workshop that we set up as an example, we had a lot of people interested in this conversation. Like, we had people who really wanted to have this workshop, and that made me feel very proud. And I was glad that I got to team up with Alma to be able to bring this to SJSU. And like, I want to bring it everywhere, which is pretty cool that we're going to have this like on YouTube. So it's like we could reach a bigger audience, because it is something that needs to be talked about. Because sometimes, just like as Daisy had mentioned before, is like some of these conversations aren't even had in our own households. And sometimes you don't even know, like, how do I empower myself as a woman if I never grew up even seeing that? And it was kind of like your empowerment as a woman was being there for the man or like the men in your family. So it's really cool. I really like having these conversations, and like there's like a few mujer like poets and like femme poets and like artists that I really like to follow that like talk a lot about women empowerment. So probably at the end of this video, like we can discuss that, or I'll probably like link some stuff in the description of this video. But yeah, does anybody else have any like ideas of how you can empower women?
Yeah, I think going off from what you said, I do believe that, having these conversations is a start and is a very significant way in empowering other mujeres. And I think there's empowerment, it's so broad. There's just so many ways, big to small,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, woman empowerment, I would say, there's the power in there. And I think just simply being, how would I say? I didn't even know how to explain it. It's just so broad. Just making valid your mujer counterpart, that, making allowing them to express themselves, and kind of honoring their own unique self. I think that's in such I'm saying in such a general form, but it's so broad. I would say it's just that, acknowledging and truly validating your other mujer counterpart, and respecting their kind of way of being and how they rival themselves. I think that's in just general human, I guess, empowerment. But for mujeres, I would say it's that, knowing, kind of supporting in that way, and allowing your mujer counterpart to, I don't know how, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but just simply validating. I think that, just truly finding power within each and everyone, and knowing, allowing them to know that you support them and that you can be who you want to be. Yes. But I think, yeah. And like I said, there's like small gestures to big ones. So maybe I'll like think of one specific, but yeah.
So for women empowerment, the way I see it is that you first empower yourself to speak your own truth.
Okay.
Yes.
You said it perfectly. You said it perfectly.
Because it's so hard to not only realize exactly who you are, but it's even harder to get out to the world. So that's an ongoing process all the time. But the second part is enabling other women to do the same, whether it's through small actions or big ones. But in doing that, like, not only are you empowering yourself, you're empowering others. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, like, I personally tried to do when I had my first close friend here on SPSU. Like, I was excited. Like, I was like, oh my God, I finally have a friend here, like an actual true friend. And the way that she just like carries herself and is so kind, but accountable to who she is like something that I like wanted to model, right? And like through the conversations I'd have with her, it's just like you have a lot of like self-realization moments that you realize like exactly who you are. And if you're not living authentically to yourself, you're not failing yourself, but you are kind of not existing for your own being. And it's hard. It's always going to be hard, but as long as we enable ourselves and enable others to do the same, like it's just slow moving process, but it's still a process.
Yes.
Yeah, like right now when I apologized and y'all came through like Esperanza and Yesenia, I was like, damn, I feel empowered because as I'm making these realizations, I don't, if it weren't for this conversation, I wouldn't have been able to come to that conclusion because of all of y'all. All of your contributions, they're so like genuine. I can't find them anywhere else, you know? They're all so unique. And I feel like even when I'm being empowered, I'm still not sure. I'm still not empowered within myself. Like, I still don't believe what I say. That's why I apologized. But then y'all picked me up again and told me that it's okay. And that was empowering. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, yes, it definitely starts within you, but it also involves like external factors, like you can see empowerment, and then you can feel empowerment, and then you could speak empowerment to other people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying. I support that.
Yeah, but you realize that, like, even though it was like, I think like half an hour ago that happened, that it's contagious. You will now continue to reassure and reinforce that your validity and your authenticity of what you believe.
Yeah.
Esperanza is hitting us with all these motivational quotes.
I know.
I'm writing these down.
What do you have for breakfast?
I
I
don't
know
really.
when she started, I was like, oh, that's exactly what she just said it in like a nutshell. Like she just put everything together. I was like, that's exactly what it is, you know?
Don't worry, y'all. It's recorded, so we should write like a little quote book.
Yes, daily quotes by Esperanza.
I mean, I also have like one-liners, but I feel like I don't really catch them, or like when I say the quote, I'm just like, wait, what did I just say? It's like big brain energy, but at the same time, I can't retain it.
See, big brain energy, that right there, period.
That's funny.
But yeah, that's a really good question. What is women empowerment?
Yeah, so we actually have a direct definition for y'all of women empowerment. So women empowerment refers to increasing the spiritual, political, social, education, gender, or economic strength of individuals and communities of women. So I think we basically, like, as we were speaking, we basically talked about a lot of that for the most part. Like, even when it says gender, and we talked earlier about like how there's a spectrum of womanhood, but to also go along with women empowerment, I really wanted to show y'all a video of this woman named Elizabeth Acevedo. And in this video, she talks about like women empowerment, but also this is where the trigger warning comes in too. She also talks about femicide and violence against women. So I'm gonna share my screen with y'all so we can watch it together. I'm like, my Wi-Fi has been doing really well. So I'm like hoping that this will be good and it'll work out. But I'm gonna share my screen, okay?
Some young men possess disjointed psyches, makes them destroy our discs and joints with swollen fists and coveted Nikes. I have turned the last age you ever knew, and know what it is like to fear both love and being left. Although his knuckles never kissed fractures into my bones or flesh, I have been consumed and made excuses. Thrown myself at his words, though they were fenced with barbed wire, and then cried about the acquired bruises. I do not know how many times I passed you in the hall. Did you press prayers like duct tape onto your brokenness? I only ever noticed your smile. Now I notice your ghost in too many girls. And could it be any one of us who love enough to actually return Adam's rib? Did he ever ask if you would die for him? And did you unknowingly answer, attracting fate with feverish promises? I want answers from you. I want to know how to carve your name on the wind, because that will never die. I want you to tell me this is the last poem I will ever write about a girl who danced with the night in her palm. I wrote that poem 10 years ago, after learning that a high school classmate had been brutally murdered by her boyfriend. That last question, is this the last poem I would write about a girl like you, haunts my work. The last 10 years, I keep writing about violence against women, physical violence, sexual violence, psychological violence. My work cannot get away from it. I think it's partly because I know that poetry can immortalize a topic, right? And so often when violence against women happen, it's a quick hashtag or a short byline, and then the names and the stories are forgotten. And this work of art is to elevate those stories, to elevate those pieces. On the other hand, I really, really hope I don't have to perform these poems ever again. A part of me is really trying to work toward obsolescence. I do not want to feel that this poem is useful. I want it to be antiquated. I want it to be a bygone era where we feel like poetry is the only way that we can talk about this kind of violence. My partner and I have been talking about having children, which is kind of awesome, right? Because you're like, yay, I have a partner, we're gonna have children, right? But on the other hand, my work has started contemplating what that would look like. And now I find myself writing all these poems as advice to my future self upon being a mother. And I find myself writing guidebooks on how I'm going to have to raise a daughter to deal with this world. And it's scary. It's scary to contemplate how you will raise a kid, particularly a girl, in a world that oftentimes sees them as something that can be easily dismissed or easily abandoned or not worthwhile. I won't raise my daughter to be nice, to give her laugh away, to smile polite as some men plot and plan to turn her body into a weapon of war. And if they try, she will know how to wield herself. Don't tell me it's wrong to want to raise a child from this kind of fear. I know for every finger that we loosen, another knuckle grows back crooked. Another knuckle is looking to crack into my daughter's skin. And I can't trust this world to teach their sons how to treat my daughter. So I will raise her to be a sword, a spear, a shield, to turn class 10s into heated hatchet, to hold razors between her teeth, to cut unkind advances with the sharpest eyes, to hold all of this together with leather or lace, to be chiseled, prepared for rebellions against her flesh. My daughter will be carved from hard rock, sharpened shrapnel, a spear, her whole body ready to fling itself and arrow the hand of the first man who tries to cover her mouth. I think poetry is amazing because it is so easily carried in the body. We know how to deal with rhythm, right? Most of us know how to deal with rhythm. And we know how to deal with song, and we know how to deal with stories. And poetry allows us to carry these names, right? It allows us to live knowing that we have all these other women with us. Specifically women, because that's the challenge I want to give you all in a little bit. And to me, poetry is a type of artifact, right? It distinctly says this is the life and times, what someone recorded based off of what they thought was important. And I truly, truly hope that these poems I'm writing will one day be artifacts at the bottom of a dusty box at the bottom of a museum, no longer considered necessary. But I know that that's not the time we're in right now. That's not where we are in this current moment. And so I have a challenge for everyone in this room. I want you to find a woman poet. I want you to memorize one of her pieces. And on the days when things feel really heavy, when equality for women seems unattainable, when one of your male coworkers says something they don't even recognize is a microaggression, when yet another person asks you, when are you gonna get married? When are you gonna have kids? And you're like, bruh, I don't want none of that. On those days, right. On the days when you hear yet another story about a girl who's disappeared, a woman who's been brutalized, when it just feels like we can never escape this reality, recite that poem to yourself. Because at the end of the day, all poetry, even when dealing with these heaven topics, are poems, they're hope. The whole point is for hope, right? Hope to be heard, hope for all of us to heal, and hope that these poems will be obsolete, that we don't need them. I want to close with a poem that's not my own, but is by one of my favorite poets, and is one of the first poems I ever memorized by someone other than myself. It's what I recite on my heaviest of days, that I give to myself as a gift, and that I give to another woman whenever I know that she's struggling with something. And so hopefully it'll inspire you to find a poet for you to memorize. So that's your challenge. Think about a poet, find a poem, memorize it. It doesn't take much to memorize 12 lines, and then you have it for the rest of your life. This is a poem by Lucille Clifton. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model, born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other. Won't you celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed? Thank you all.
Y'all could take like a minute if you need it to like breathe. I know that video is probably a little heavy. When I was actually the one who found that video, and I came across it like really quickly when I was looking for like just any type of like woman empowerment type videos that we could have within our workshop. And I like, when I first watched it, I cried, and I thought it was like such a good video. And not only is like the author, she's Latina, but she's also Black and a woman. So it's like she has so many of these hardships that she has to go through. And it's really tough, especially when you're listening to what she's talking about. It's never anything that ends, you know? It's something that has gone on over and over again. Like everything that's happening right now with like femicides and like just women going missing and like all of this stuff, it's not new. And it sucks where people have to think in the way that she's thinking, and that she's scared to even have a daughter with her partner. Like even though they want to have kids, she's scared because she doesn't know what the future can hold for her, especially since for a lot of us it hasn't gotten better. And it's like maybe things are more tolerable, and maybe some of us live in more progressive like areas, or we have more progressive thinking families, but it's not like that for everybody. And yeah, that's why I felt like that video was very empowering, especially because she talks about poetry and storytelling and how important it is to utilize your own voice as a woman, as mujer, to fight back these systems. And within my own experience, sometimes that hurts you because you do go through like some stuff where if you're an empowered woman and you use your voice to empower others and to have these conversations, to call out people and to kind of go against the norms and the patriarchy, sometimes that turns around on you and you're the person that people don't necessarily like, or they don't want to be around or talk to because you're not who they want you to be, because they want you to be quiet, like that whole phrase, te ves más bonita. I forgot how it goes because like
Señorita, te ves más bonita.
yeah, that one, thank you. Because there's like this poet that I follow. Her name is Kim Guerrera, and her Instagram is brown, badass, and bonita. And she has a ton of like amazing, very empowering poems. And like she switches that into saying that te ves más bonita when you're using your voice, for like empowerment. Like it's something along those lines. So if any of y'all feel comfortable or are ready, I would like to hear from y'all what you took away from that video.
From the video, I couldn't, when she said that her and her partner were, gonna have children, it's exciting, like mini you, like a mini version of you and your partner. Like it's gonna be living and breathing, being annoying as well. Just like, I just thought like to my parents, like they have 3 girls, and and that joy that you can see in her face when she's talking about having children, and how it just disappears as soon as she's talking about the fear of having to raise a daughter in a world that does not value her. I like question if those thoughts have ever occurred in my parents' head, because like they always talk about just how rebelde we, and like not a throwback to like the series, but as in like just how us 3, like we always, like in their perspective, like we always talk back, but in my perspective, like we're having dialogue, right? I'm like, how much do they fear, like when they go out into the world, will I come back home?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like a thought that I had. It's one that is really hard to even want to think of the answer.
Yeah. Now that like you mentioned that, I was also thinking the same thing, like have my parents ever thought about that as well? Because just like you, my parents have 3 daughters. Like my dad is a girl dad. And like my mom, I have a half brother, so like my mom does have her son, but like for the longest time she only had girls, and my whole entire family is basically like mujeres. My dogs, they're mujeres too. And I feel like in that same way, my parents probably, I mean, we're brats, we talk back too, but I feel like I also see it differently than they do. I see it as more like questioning. Like I question a lot of like, why are things done the way that they're done? And I know a lot of people see that as really like weird, and like, no, you don't question things, like you just do it, or you just go along with things. But I've never been like that. And I know like now that I'm older, my dad, he has had these conversations with me, and he kind of laughs sometimes at me at how passionate I get about things. But it's like not in a, he's not like making fun of me or like thinking I'm dumb, but he's like laughing because he enjoys that I have my own voice, and he enjoys that I'm able to challenge him. And I don't care what people tell me, and I'm like, if I believe in something, then I'm gonna fight hard for that. But yeah.
And that is womanhood. There we go. Let me just like truly support what you just said, Jazz. I think that was very powerful. And one of the things that I think both you and Esperanza mentioned about, being resilient and how taking, even within ourselves, like empowering what our voice, what we believe, and speaking on that, speaking out loud about that. Because yes, as mujeres, we are usually shut down or quieted because our rebellious beliefs, or quote unquote rebellious, because it goes against the kind of norms that mujeres are put into, especially if we're talking within the Latinx community context. When we go against these kind of norms, we're seen as rebellious, and I take power into that. I take power into rebellion, and I think that truly that using our voice is of empowerment. Speaking on these things is truly empowering. And one of the things that the video, I don't know what the name of the poet, her name was again, but I'm gonna refer to her as the poet. Or do you know her name, Jazz? I want to call her name.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth mentioned how she made it like an important. I mean, I'm gonna explain it as like, I'm gonna literally show it, but she explained how like the hand like quieting, and how like the male counterpart quieting us, and I think that was very significant, because yes, when I've experienced a lot of times where I've said something that kind of goes against the like, oh, buena niña, or this and that, and you're like, no digas eso, no digas, like, why am I not able to say these, or why is it seen as bad to believe this, if that this is what I feel like is right. And I feel like as mujeres, a lot of our own beliefs are seen as wrong, because they go against like this kind of good girl, or like submissive kind of attitude that we're supposed to have towards the male counterpart. And so I think that was that that was just very like impactful, her gesture, and how she incorporated that into her poem. Because I feel like that, in a way, the microaggressions that she mentioned, like, yes, those are prominent, those are real, and we're kind of expected to just take them and move on, when we're not. Why aren't our own emotions and feelings like validated? And yes, Caita, te ves más bonita, pero when I speak up, like, then I'm seen as wrong, or like you're trying to quiet me, like, why? And so that ties in back to like, why are we kind of attacked for questioning? Why are we supposed to question when all of these things are affecting us as mujeres? So yeah, that was powerful. I think that was one of the biggest things that I took away.
I think touching base on what Jasmine said about the disappearance of women, like you see constantly on Twitter or on Instagram, or just like over the news, like women disappearing, like little girls disappearing, hasta eso, like constantly. And then like they just put their picture up like once or twice, and like what happens after that? Like their story just dies out. Like, what are they supposed to be forgotten? Like in Latinx countries, women are disappearing constantly. Like hundreds or thousands of women are disappearing, and what's happening to them. And then also going back to the calladita te ves más bonita, it's like, as girls, we're taught or raised to be nice, to smile, to have good manners and everything. But once we like break against all of those ideologies, those costumbres, we're seen as rude, or like we don't have good manners. Like, who raised us? Like, um And it's like, no, we're not trying to be rude. We're not trying to we're not trying to be rude. We're just tired of being hushed and quieted and silenced all this time. And we're finally breaking free of those norms.
I wanted to first of all thank Jasmine for showing us this video and exposing us to our own empowerment, our own form of liberation. I started to get very emotional when she started talking about how she wants children with her partner, or how they're planning it, and that I really related to that because I've been in a relationship with my partner for 4 years now. And even before all this time, like that was always a question that was on our minds. And I just started thinking, like listening to all of y'all and your amazing contributions, like why is it assumed that a woman wants those things? in and I feel like even more so why in a relationship. And it kind of goes to show that the choices, and when you go in a partnership, and especially in marriage, just it's like so it's so rigid in like the freedom that a woman really has, that your decision ends up not being your decision, but like the power that's being taken away from you is now handed to your partner. Even if it's a 50-50, like that power is not yours anymore. Your body is not your body anymore, because, and they're not your choices anymore, because you choose to be in a relationship. Even though this person may or may not have identified with some of the struggles that affect women on like a daily basis, I feel like it's just, I don't know, I related to it because I have issues with that in my relationship, if I'm being open. I'm a very questionable, like why, or like why do women think it's cute when men say, oh yeah, are you want to have my babies, like, or like women are like, yeah, to have his baby, like that's just why. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how did these things come to be, and why are so many of us against them? Like, and I feel like sometimes the issues that are coming up today, like well, that have existed for a long time, like the pronouns, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like that is a way for folks who have not been seen to force others to see them and give them that right? Like, women don't have that. Like, how do I explain this? I feel like that movement of like people starting to be conscious of others people, genders, and like choices, basically, and identities, it ties into how they're not seen. But I feel like women don't have something that can force themselves to be seen, because it's already been decided that that's not okay, and that they're going to be silenced if they choose to resist, like with the calladita te ves más bonita. Am I making sense? I don't know if I'm making sense. Can you please be honest?
Well, from what I'm getting at it is that from your own personal experience, you question tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And in partnerships, you also question tradition, mm-hmm. and you question where these ideas of what a romantic partnership in the sense is and why it is that way. But what I'm really seeing is that, sorry, I just like lost my train of thought. what I'm really saying is that like you yourself, you are questioning it, but no one else can validate you questioning it.
Yeah, because there's so many, just how we said women empowerment is allowing women to have the choice whether it's yours or not. Like it's the same or different, right? So I feel like that in itself creates confusion, because then it's like, okay, well, what is right here? If women do, like, if some women do want to have, you know, children, and they see it as like part of their life, then do I separate that from like what I am supposed to be experiencing, and what am I supposed to be resisting against? Like, how are they all in sync? Does that make sense? If they're all so different.
I don't think those have to be in sync though. That's why you use an intersectional lens to approach issues. Because everyone has different identities, different sexualities, different views, and they don't always have to make sense and align perfectly, because that's not how life is. But it is kind of like paradoxical for them to exist at the same time. That I won't die, but they don't have to be like aligned completely. That's why we use the intersectional lens. And that's like one thing that I saw, I think it was last semester, where Daisy and I had a professor where we had to do presentations. And Daisy, I like ran into her in the bathroom because I needed to fix my hair, and she was in there, you know, like calming the nerves, like getting prepped, and like, you know, she was gonna do this presentation on femicide out of all things. So I was really excited to hear her. And, you know, she does the presentation, like I'm excited, like she is, it's engaging and everything. And this brings up the issue of, you know, I that there's multiple needs that, because when we heard the feedback, we were sharing feedback because this is a semester where we got closer, and I was like, you know, telling her my experiences, and she was sharing her own with me. And the professor, you know, kind of just like shot her down in the sense, in the feedback, not in person, but in the feedback, that, you know, it was too performative. And it was something that like I could tell. I'm not sure if I correctly read the situation right, but you know, in that moment when Daisy told me about the feedback, she didn't feel that her experience didn't feel validated, her emotions didn't feel validated, and it's something that I'm seeing reoccurring now. But they are valid. There may not always be a person to validate it at the moment, but that's when you have to validate yourself.
Yeah, actually, with this professor, it's funny that you mention it, because recently I have this professor this semester as well, and they were talking about like last names, and how they called me out and singled me out, and basically used me an example, like when Daisy gets married, she's gonna have this person's last name, and I corrected him and said, if I get married. And he didn't acknowledge me, he didn't hear me, he continued to talk over me. I mean, I was looking on Zoom, and I saw probably one student that actually reacted to that, and the rest of them were either off camera or just continuing with the conversation. And I feel like that makes me feel like not empowered in a lot of spaces, and that's where I struggle to be confident enough to resist. And especially in my partnership, I feel like very alone, because I'm the only person who is a woman who does have an experience of what it is like to live this life with the early curfew, not being allowed, not encouraged to like explore my sexuality, or to do things that were already given to my male brother as a right when he was born, and questioning why I wanted that equality, why what I had done to trust or earn that, whereas my brother didn't have to do any of those things. yeah, I really like the poem, and it's true, like it's really hard. It's just about a lot of things, and this is not my therapy session, so I'm gonna leave it there. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm gonna look for a poem I'm gonna look for my favorite mujer poet. So if y'all have suggestions, leave them in the chat box.
Yeah, I was gonna like actually challenge y'all to do what she said in the video and actually look for a poem that you really like, because that was supposed to be like a component of this workshop, and I had like a ton of cute poems like written out, and we were gonna do an art component. So I could share that with y'all if you want. It's mostly just from Kim Guerrera, because she's like my favorite poet, and a lot of hers are like really easy to read, and they're in Spanglish too, so that's like really cool because she utilizes her culture, her Mexican American culture. And now that we have our group chat, if y'all want and if you find a poem, let us know in the group chat, so that'd be cool. But yeah, I'm glad y'all really enjoyed that. And yeah, all of these conversations are so hard to have, but they're so important. And I appreciate y'all for sharing. And